And we're live. Hello and welcome, everyone. It's time for another exciting episode of IT Career in Australia channel. And tonight's topic is what does a tech lead do and how to become one? So please join us for engaging panel discussion where our speakers will share their career journey and typical responsibilities, providing an understanding of what it means to lead a technical team. So this conversation will explore various paths to become a tech lead, addressing the daily challenges and decisions they face, and offer some advice to those considering transitioning into this role. So yeah, if you're thinking becoming tech lead or just exploring different career options, that's definitely a right place to ask some questions. So make sure to say some hi in the comments. Let us know what you're listening, and obviously don't be shy to ask your questions. Before I pass it on to our speakers to introduce themselves, just quickly remind you that we're streaming on LinkedIn and YouTube. So obviously, if you're watching us on LinkedIn, make sure to subscribe to YouTube channel. If you're watching us on YouTube, make sure to find me on LinkedIn. So the usual things. And I also have a meetup group. And especially if you're based in Melbourne, I do recommend to join a meetup group. You can get notification of coming events. And we have a face-to-face event in Melbourne as well, tech walking events. So next one will be in August. So again, please don't be shy, say hi in the comments. And and also I always encourage use these live streams, not only opportunity to learn new information, but also to network with people in the industry. And you can do it in, by commenting and chatting in the comments and engaging with our speakers as well. So anyway, that's enough of me. I'm going to pass it on to our speakers to introduce themselves. We'll start with Mohit, please.
Hey, hi everyone. Welcome to the Tech Channel with Yana. My name is Mohit. I'm working with NAB as a tech lead for almost like now 5 years. I have a total experience within the IT industry for working for almost like 15 and 16 plus years altogether. Uh, I work in different technologies, backend mostly priority, and I work in like Node.js, JavaScript, Spring Boot, and all these technologies. And I like the work that I do on a daily basis. Like I do look after some of the staffs which are working along with me. So that's all about me. Thank you so much, and welcome again. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. Mohit, Dhanushka, please, over to you.
Thanks, Anna. Welcome, everyone. I'm currently working as a tech lead in Prezi. I've been there for around 2.5 years now. My primary focus was in the front-end space, and now I'm also looking or working closely with the back-end stuff as well. I'm looking after a backend product, backend API product right now, and with the team. So that's me.
Thank you, Dhanushka, and Stephen, over to you.
Hi, I'm Stephen. Great to be here. I'm tech lead at Australia Post. Been there for quite a number of years, and mostly focused in backend in shipping or parcel sending and things like that. So enabling people, basically merchants, to create shipments, print labels, pay for orders, and so on.
Yeah, everyone can't wait to ask you a question about where is my parcel. Yeah,
I don't know where the parcel is. Once it gets into the network, it's someone else's problem.
There you go. A few people saying hi. She was here. Gary's here. Thank you guys for saying hi. And I guess my first usual question is, please, share with us your journey into becoming tech lead. Maybe a little bit, why you decide to choose that sort of career journey. Something maybe inspired you to became a tech lead, or maybe you just fall into it, just like a natural progression. So yeah, if we please can start with Steve this time. So how did you become tech lead?
Actually, I come from a family of accountants, But I decided the accounting was far too boring and nerdy, so I got into IT for different. I do like to think. Actually, one of the things I think with IT and tech is I would like to build stuff, but I'm not handy enough, so I had to actually use coding to build things for me. And I guess how to become tech lead once you get into IT is probably the somewhat natural career progression. Go through the development stages, senior dev. And I was working in a fairly large team. There was sort of a tech lead who moved on, and I kind of unofficially was taking over on some of those duties while they were waiting for another tech lead to join the team. And when that new tech lead joined, it was very interesting because I probably had more knowledge of the system and the architecture and the sort of the subject matter, but he obviously knew how to be the tech lead. But he came from Toll and had been spending a lot of time in lodgements and said he wanted to try something different. So he moved into a different team, and that really opened up an opportunity to move into that tech lead role, initially on a trial basis, and then eventually became permanent.
Go. So, the opportunity sort of come to you, and you take it in the right time.
Yeah, I don't know if we're getting into some of the other questions, but I do find one of the things with tech lead, so getting up to the senior developer type thing, it's sort of a recognition as to abilities, but to get to that tech lead role, you probably need to have that opportunity become available. So they can't just say you're tech lead now. That needs to actually be a role, I guess, available to step into. It's not just a recognition type thing.
Yeah, that makes sense. Dhanushka, what about you? How did you end up being tech lead? Maybe you dream about it from high school. Who knows,
No, that's when I first started, I think a long time ago, maybe 16 years ago, I was curious to sort of know. I was in the industry from the university doing small projects, and then I was curious to know like where these products coming up, how do they become a product and things like that. And then I was a bit lucky to join a company which was at that time very small company, and I owned one product, one slice of the product, and I worked very closely with the stakeholders to come up with the features and what can be done, what cannot be done, and things like that. So I think that sort of set me up for being curious and getting involved in the products more often. I got an opportunity later down the track when I was in Brisbane to join as a lead developer, not a tech lead, but leading a product. So that only had the technical aspect of the project. And then I moved into a company called Vicinity, and there, I think, very similar to what Steve was describing. In the middle of a large project, the technical lead had to move out of the company, and then I unofficially took the responsibility of driving the project forward. It was a fairly large project. I was a bit nervous as well, but I think at the end the project was a success, and that gave me the confidence of sort of leading projects was something that I enjoy and probably capable of as well. And then after that, I think I moved to another company as a tech lead, and then here I am in Prezi as the official tech lead with the team of developers as well.
Perfect. Thank you, Danushka. Mohit, do you have a similar story or your journey been different? And make sure to unmute yourself.
No, I think I have a similar story altogether. When I joined NAV first, I also joined as a senior developer altogether because starting with the tech lead, it has its own challenges. You can't really be a tech lead on day one unless you don't know the product about and in and out of everything. And I think I surpassed that challenge at some point after 2 years being a senior developer at NAB. uh, like until unless you understand the architecture of the product, how they connect, how they work with each other, how the microservice connect with the other services. See, the product understanding is very important when you want to become a tech lead, and how depth your knowledge is. I started my career with Java and all technologies like that, and when I started with this career, it started with altogether a new technology. So getting yourself aware about the new technologies takes some time. And the other thing is like get to know other people's how they do and how to manage their work altogether and what are their expertise. That helps you understand like what you want to be. So if you want to work as a mindset as a tech lead, you need to understand the product very well, and you understand what kind of people you're working with altogether. So that makes a big combination out there. And that's how I got my journey. I was offered there's a position available for the tech lead. They asked me, you want to go for it? I said, yeah, it's a good point. At some point we want to start it and get to know other people's how they work out and everything. So it adds up a lot. Yeah, you need to know each and everything out there. Yeah.
Perfect. Looks like, with some sort of classic career journey from the software engineer to lead to tech lead. And let's uncover it a little bit more. Before that, we have a few people saying hi. James is here as well. Love is here saying an amazing tech lead, and meant Dhanushka. Here we go. Dhanushka, have some fans here watching us. So my next question is, what do you think the primary responsibilities of tech lead, and how do they differ from software engineers? So, and also maybe a bit of a clarity here in terms of how it's different from lead software engineer. We have senior software engineer, sometimes we have staff software engineer, lead software engineer, all these titles. Yeah. So how would you define the difference between actual a tech lead and lead software engineer? And is it maybe it's the same thing? I don't know. And and also as a tech lead, maybe it will be kind of next question, but let's maybe cover it all together. How much coding you still do compared to when you individual contributor? So Mohit, maybe we'll start with you this time. So what is this difference between lead software engineer and the tech lead?
There's definitely a lot of difference out there. See, when you has joined as a senior software engineer, I get to see a piece or a chunk of piece of a big product altogether that is about to get originated. And when you're working on a small things like building up a microservice or fixing up a code and putting some enhanced capability to the existing API altogether, these are very small bits of the pieces of the product altogether. But eventually, when you get to know all other APIs, how they connect, what's the security protocol, how they should communicate it, what kind of architecture they are going to use to actually communicate, that's where the picture comes in, and you try to understand more about the product. So become a tech lead, you need to know the product, right? So if you get to know the product very well about in and out of each and everything, how it works and all together, that helps you, right? So that's how it all started altogether. So difference between the title and everything, see, it's all the similar job. It's just I used to do a lot of development when I all started, maybe 100% I would say so, but nowadays it's kind of I would say 50-50. So I need to look after other developers, have to sit with them to understand what challenges that they're facing, need to work out on their challenges, see if I faced a similar situation in my past, and that's where I can get to help them. This is what the tech lead do actually, because you need to understand the problem statement and you need to have a proper solution for that problem statement so you can answer those questions. So this is something that added a responsibility on top of software engineer. Software engineer is just designing a piece of code by yourself, maybe an individual contributor, but tech lead is something that you add up to the other people's in their journey altogether, help them to excel in their career and help them to understand how to solve these kind of issues and everything. So that's how it looks after over there.
Makes sense. Stephen, what about you? How is your responsibility split, and do you still code a lot, and how it's different from lead engineer?
Yeah, good question. So I think that we'll probably lead. We haven't really had to deal with a sort of a lead software engineer role. That's probably closer to a tech lead than, say, the senior one. We did have at one point at the company a differentiation in sort of the tech lead role between solution lead and engineering lead. And the engineering lead had a lot more, or had the people management responsibilities as well, like actually having reports and things, whereas solution lead was sort of somewhat similar, but just, didn't have the people management aspect. But I think in terms of, I guess, the coding and it's still a little bit, but as a tech lead, you have a lot more meetings and you're a lot busier and you're dealing with the business and things like that. So it's very hard for you to work on large pieces of work or things that are time critical. So I'd often jump in if there's a small card that I can jump in and do it quickly. I might pick up on that one. I'll pick that one up, but not if it's sort of going to drag over for, a day or days or weeks or something like that, just because things are going to come up. You're going to get pulled into a couple of dozen different directions and you're just not going to be able to fit on that. And I think the other thing that's important as a tech lead is sometimes it would be very quick for you to just jump in because generally the system very well, and I could just jump in and fix that in an hour and move on. But if you can spend some time taking other developers through it, so they can do it the next time. Otherwise, that's probably can be a much better use of your time, even though it might take a little bit longer than you're just saying, I could just knock it out in half an hour. I think that's
saying more meetings, yay!
But I think there's the mentoring aspect, which I think you do as you get more senior developers, but really mentoring the other developers and just being, and veering into other questions, but really being responsible for the security of the system as well, being that making sure it's maintainable, it's up to date, and things like that. As opposed to getting the story and mainly focusing on the story, it's really a broader, higher level view, I think.
Makes sense. Dhanushka, what about you? How is your responsibilities looking? Is it the same or different?
It's an interesting question actually, because I've been a lead developer before in one of the companies, and I see the main difference with the tech lead and a lead developer on a project is that the tech lead is sort of positioned to look after the product in the long term. Probably lead developer might be someone that looks after project until it is delivered, and they move on to a different thing and jump projects after project, something like that. But from a tech lead's perspective, I think it's more of a facilitator role as well, where you sort of be the person that if the team is struggling, you jump in and help. And if there is something that you need to discuss with everyone else to get an agreement, or so that those kind of things fall under the tech lead's role. I think, and in addition, I think one of the most important thing I see as a tech lead is aligning the product roadmap with the technical roadmap, so that what would be the product in 1 year time, 2 years time, 5 years time, and then we can align the technical side of things to match that and not go in two different directions in terms of scalability, or whether it is making the product global, or whether it is making the product more scalable. That's I think kind of difference with the lead developer and a tech lead. That's also I feel like one of the biggest responsibilities. Also there's people aspect. I think, like Steve was mentioning as well, that helping developers and mentoring, making sure that everyone enjoys what they're working on, at least in the long term. So yeah.
And how much coding you do? Like, you also work in you're working in a small organization at the moment, compared to Australia Post and NAB. Does it? Do you feel like it's different in terms of that you need to do more coding, for example?
No, I think I would describe it similar to what Steve said. We have lots of meetings, and well, I wouldn't be able to commit to something. But I try to get involved in early stages of the projects, especially when they're greenfield, and try to make sure that they follow the best practices and things like that. But I think after that, it's up to the team to sort of carrying that forward.
It makes sense. And I guess what's the biggest challenge you think in your role? And maybe you even have some example, I don't know, that the real life example of something that's been challenging and maybe you didn't expect to face those challenges when you moved to this role. And Dhanushka, we'll start with you first. What do you feel like been your biggest challenge as a tech lead?
Something that I wasn't expecting is the amount of meetings that you have to go through every day, and the amount of context switching you have to do as a tech lead. Sometimes I have like to-do list of 2 items, but sometimes I have like to-do list of 20 items that keeps growing, and it's different contexts sometimes as well. So this is that's I feel like the biggest challenge, and not being like training your mind to sort of jump in and out of things very
And
often.
do a lot of content switching, yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Stephen, what about you? What do you feel like the biggest challenge for you as a tech lead?
Yeah, I think definitely the meetings, and I do think with when COVID hit and working from home became much more popular, meetings, people are no longer constrained as to how many people could fit in a room. So hey, we can have 50 people on a meeting, and that seemed to have get a lot of meetings that go away in this. I think meetings. I think the other challenge is really balancing between delivering business features and functionality and focusing on sort of engineering requirements and the maintenance of the system, keeping things up to date. Because obviously the business want more features out and they want to bring make their customers happier, but you've got to balance that with if the system falls into a screaming heap because it's there's vulnerabilities or things like that. And I should say, Post, I think they do a very good job of, addressing vulnerabilities and things like that. But yeah, there can be a bit of, it can be a bit challenging sometimes to find time to maintain assets, especially some of the assets that aren't being actively developed on that still, are still running in the background and people are still using it, but they're sort of deprioritized and finding time to actually keep those, updated and things like that when, that can be a bit challenging.
Makes sense. Mohit, do you have a similar challenges or yours different?
Something sort of the same, but there are challenges like, see, when you become a tech lead, right, you take care of other people's to help them in their journey altogether. And sometimes you get into some problems and you don't have a solution in hand for you, right? Then you have to discover and sit back with them. And some things, see, you have to understand, like being a senior software engineer, being a tech lead has a different set of mindset actually when we start with. Senior software will look at the single piece of work that he's doing, but tech lead has to look at the entire product lifecycle, how it actually going to come up as live in production. So sometimes you have a different people, different mindset. You need to think of from their perspective how they are going to solve this problem. You might have a better idea to say like this problem can be solved in a much easier way in a much smaller time altogether. That's where the gaps come up. So you have challenges, you have to look after the people, see how their mindset works and let them adapt something. Sometimes you also get to learn from some of the senior developers that they are actually doing much better than what you could suppose to be doing on this. So this is like a learning base. You are a tech lead, but you still have a learning graph for yourself and for the other ones as well. So you have to communicate very well. Communication is a key, most important part of it. If you don't communicate well, things might get messy or wrong somewhere.
And Mohit, I'm glad we kind of went to this topic of the communication skills. So how would you, I guess, prioritize what's, I know it's, you can't really say what's more important, but how would you describe what's more important, leadership and communication skills or technical expertise for the tech lead role? So it's easier to be a tech lead if you're lacking some technical expertise, or it's easier to be a tech lead if you're lacking some communication skills. So where is that, the perfect balance, you think? Mohit, what do you think? Communications versus technical.
I think it's a mix of both. I think so. See, when you're talking to the stakeholders who are actually giving us a direction, like what kind of product they want to build up, that's another story. Then you have to be taken care of the leadership kind of stuff and to understand the product very well altogether. But when you're talking to your team, where it comes back to a small piece of work that they are going to develop or they are going to work on, that's where sometimes the technical, because they might get stuck in something and then you need to help. So you can't choose one out of it. You have to keep a balance somewhere, because as Steve mentioned and Dhanush mentioned, there's a lot of meetings when you become tech lead, because context switching is way too far when you are working with big piece of work, and you have to be very particular about how you want to drag this piece of work and make adjustment to your timelines, how to deliver those products and everything. Then that's very important out there. So you have to be taken care of both things, leadership at some point and technical expertise at some point. You have to keep up with both the things, actually, I would say so.
Thank you. Danushka, what do you think? Do you think that one and another more important?
Yeah, I think both of them are important. I would probably say the technical side of things is a bit more important to actually get it started. Uh, but as you go on into the role, you realize that leadership is what makes the difference in a team. Because, for example, um, you're also responsible to ensure that the team is challenged enough as well. For example, we need to have a balance of challenging work and repetitive work as well, right? Those kind of things you have to start thinking about. And then when you're working with different people, they enjoy certain different aspects of software engineering as well. Someone might enjoy working on the front end more, or someone might enjoy back end more. So in a team, that this is becomes very interesting. That sometimes you only have back end work, and how do you manage these situations? I think in a summary, I think it is not about, I think, being technical or being a certain like people management person. It is like Mohit said, it's the balance. Like sometimes you have to act like a people leader, sometimes you have to act as a technical lead or technically sound person. So yeah, that's what I feel like.
Yeah, trying to balance both. Stephen, what do you think? Are you leaning to one and another on importance?
Well, I mean, I think there's a balance. You probably need both. Although, having said that, I've worked with some tech leads. So there's a tech lead of a front end team that wasn't a front end developer, and so I think at the very least, to get into a position to have an opportunity as a tech lead, you do need to prove tech skills. And you need to know how to developer and things like that. But I think once you sort of transition from that sort of senior developer into a tech lead, then communication and leadership becomes almost more important, because that is probably what you're going to be doing. And you need to know enough to help out people and jump in and unblock developers if there's an issue, and there's the expectation that you can solve things. But yeah, I think without those communication and leadership skills, you're going to very quickly, you're not going to get a chance and things like that. And And going back to some of the initial questions, I think the way, whether we're veering into future questions, but like you have to almost make yourself visible doing presentations and presenting to stakeholders to get those sort of opportunities to become a tech lead. Actually, at Post, there was another role which was practice lead. So the people that really love technical and want to really dive deep into certain languages, front end or back end, stuff like that. There was a specific role where they become the sort of practice lead and set the standards for that technical side without needing to be necessarily have that leadership and coaching and working with the business aspect. So that might be an option.
Okay, makes sense. So you can really dive into the technical side. And I guess my question from here would be, is there any, and could be quite a broad question in a way, but is there any like technology and tools that tech lead like should be proficient in, or is it really depends on the organization? So you mentioned that you need to build this, tech knowledge to become a senior engineer, then to become a tech lead. But would you pinpoint some particular technology and tools that you feel like, really important to grow to this tech lead position? And maybe Steve will start with you this time.
Obviously, generally you'd want to be proficient in the technologies that are being used in the assets you're mentioning. So whether that's Java backend or front end, Angular, React, but I think some of the other ones, whether it's technologies or tools, but things like do a lot of like sequence diagrams and things like that, that would probably be a big one. So just being able to explain how things work, how the architecture works, and not necessarily given technology, but being able to demonstrate if there's new features or if there's, especially when you're part of a larger team or area and there's a lot of things coming in and going out and how it all interacts, being able to document and demonstrate that is pretty much required, I would say.
Yeah. And Dhanushka, what about you? Can you pinpoint any particular technology that you think is important as a tech lead, or is it hard to choose which ones?
I wouldn't say a tool, but I think there's maybe like kind of tools such as Jira, like where you manage tasks and things like that, and also that's one thing, and also how do you organize your task and things like that as well. So that's task as in like your to-do list and things like that. That's also very important for a tech lead. But overall, I think it is the mindset, because I was predominantly a front-end developer when I moved into this role, and then I had to deal with a lot of back-end stuff. I had to learn a lot. I had to learn from the developers and from architects, and a different kind of challenges. So I think it's just the mindset that you come up with rather than the tools that you use. I think so.
And I guess my follow-up question would be: can you be a tech lead when you, for example, looking for another role, and can you be a tech lead in a different organization that's using completely different technology? For example, I don't know, you've been a tech lead and the team was using mostly Java and backend, and then you're moving to another organization and I don't know, they use mostly front end and JavaScript. So is it an easy transition? So you already start touching on it, so that you were concentrating on front end and then to back end. Or usually when you move from company to company, you sort of staying with the same tech stack. Or like Mohit, you'll jump in straight away.
I want to answer because see, I've been quite some time for the technology altogether. When I started with Java, Spring Boot, and all these technologies to make build up the backend APIs. But when I joined, I was back in India for like 10 years. I came back almost like 6 years back in Australia, and the tech stack and everything got changed quite a lot because from moving from Java to a JavaScript language, learning TypeScript, Node.js, and all that stuff. So that's a new thing for me because like you it depends upon your mindset, right? So when you are working with some technology, if you know the crux of how the technology is being built or a particular language is being built, and you're logical enough to understand the crux of the technology, I think it won't be that hard. But you still face challenges, right? How to set up and everything, how to start working on this, learning the syntax and everything. So it becomes get into more into technical depth. You need, like, you might learn it, but to get to know better about the technology, you have to spend more and more time towards it. So the more time you spend, you get to know more about the technology, and that takes you a better path altogether and try to become a better in terms of what technology you're using. So there is no specific technology as such, but right now it's all about like when you're working with small organization or a big organization or mid-scale organization, it so totally depends upon them. So how what technology they want to work with. Just like if you're working with the enterprise, they have a predefined set of languages that you can work on. You can't choose by yourself, this is the technology that you are very familiar with and you want to start working on it. So it becomes on that path altogether. Then you get to learn about new technology, learn about it, get started onto that, and over the period of time you becomes better and better over there. So it's all about logical thinking. Language is just the difference of syntax, but otherwise it's all the same actually.
Yeah, makes sense. And guys, who is listening to us, I see that you're watching. Feel free to ask some question and also say hi, because not everyone say hi in the comments. So make sure to say hi and yeah, jump in with some questions. We have time for questions from the audience as well. And next question from me. How do you stay, I guess, on top of what's happening in the tech world, and how you stay like relevant? So obviously, especially if you're stuck in the meetings, most of the time maybe don't have time to go in depth and work with the technology. What kind of some of your tips of staying on top of technology, and maybe you use some resources, maybe you like some events, conferences, books, or anything like that. So Mohit, maybe we'll start with you this time. So how do you stay up to date?
uh, See, you have to keep a balance. Like as I can see one chat asking for like how you manage the balance in your personal life as well as the technique your work altogether. So it's just like, see, if you are into meetings for almost like 80% of your time the entire day, you won't get a chance to actually look at the new tech stack or something. So you have to start reading those articles. Like there are some good sites where you can actually read about new articles, new technology. You have to keep up and you have to spend some time, right? You can't say like you're working a job altogether for the whole time and you don't have the time to actually spend on those technologies. You have to do it because eventually those technology will help you, like what's the latest in the tech market that you are going to adopt, and is it going to be a benefit on the technology that you are existing you already using, and what's the difference. Like, so if you understand these things altogether, you stay in touch with the new techs, what's the new development that is coming up. Because if you stay on the same technology for a longer time, uh, it's hard for you to migrate from one technology to another technology. It takes time to, and to adopt these you have to learn more and more. You have to read these articles, maybe try out some sample, have a GitHub repo for yourself, start building up small projects or small things, and then you get to learn more and more about the technology. And it helps you over a period of time to get better, and it helps you in decision making as well. Like when you are looking at some tech stack, what are the problem and challenges you are facing and how to solve those problems altogether. I think that's the crux about it. Maybe Steve and Dhanush can add more to that.
Yeah, Steven, so how do you stay on top, and do you have some favorite resources or anything?
I don't know if I have any favorite resources, but I do think in terms of staying on top, one of the tasks as a tech lead is to always be looking how you can do things better. So it is, it's part of your job to look into things, and whether it's, some developers that are particularly interested in certain technologies, and you go and check it out. Or if you work in a large enough organization, there's often other people that are playing around with certain things that you can that you can look into and have, a community of practice or even just a wiki page or some of the stuff like that. Micronaut, as one example, is an alternative to Spring, and even Lambdas as a much more cost effective than microservices and things like that. That's probably getting a bit old now, but yeah, it's sort of I guess one of the things with being tech lead is you don't just sort of stick with the status quo. It's really about looking forward and seeing what else is coming and what you can leverage to improve things. So it's not, I guess I don't see it as something that makes it hard not being in the tools to keep up with, whereas it's, you have to look into those things and have time to play around with it, but that's still, I guess, kind of doing your job. So it's not, not taking time away from your job to play around with stuff. It's actually very important for that.
Makes sense. And Dhanushka, what about you? Do you have any other strategies or similar ones?
I like to build stuff. I think I learn a lot by building things than actually looking up and reading things. So especially in my current role, there's lots of innovation happening around the company where I can sort of go and join and work on things. We also did a few projects recently that are sort of very innovative in terms of the backend architecture and the way it is implemented. So those kind of things are opportunities, I feel like, and then you have to sort of solve a problem. Then you have to go out there and look for things, how they work. I think that gives you sort of a balance between working on your job at the same time learning. So I feel like that works best for my current situation. But at the same time, when you're in this situation where you're jumping in out of meetings, I think some meetings are actually opportunities to learn. Especially, I feel like the architecture guild and things like that. There's guilds, different kind of guilds, like backend guilds, front end guilds, and things like that. They're also, I think, very good opportunities for you to sort of get a lead on something, and then you think when there's a challenge, you're like, okay, there was something that discussed of this guild. Maybe I'll go and have a chat to that person. So those kind of, I think, learning at the job is the easiest thing to, I think, do as a tech lead. I find it a bit hard to find certain amount of learning time, but I try to find some time. That's a must, I would say. Mohit said.
Yeah, learning on the job and learning from the people. We have quite a few questions from the audience coming up, so let's just take some questions from the audience. Nos has a great question. Hi everyone, how do you manage your work and personal life? I've been a senior engineer for years and I'm scared to step up to this role because of the workload. Who wants to answer this question?
I can go ahead. Oh, this is what I was wondering. The simplest is managing work and personal life. Have kids, then personal life has to be prioritized. But actually, I think I was saying that I don't know. I think to me, in some ways, the work and personal life, it's more about the company than the role itself. So I've been lucky to the team I'm in, they're great, and the developers are awesome, and it hasn't felt like I'm spending lots and lots of time chasing things up because the developers don't need necessarily a lot of direction and things like that, and work very well, and you sort of can help guide and lead and things like that. But I haven't really felt that all of a sudden there's a lot more time pressures. The stuff you're doing is very different, obviously a lot more meetings and things like that, but it doesn't necessarily have to impact I don't think it has to impact your personal life. And if that's a concern, it might be something about the company rather than the role. I don't know, could be.
Makes sense,
I did at one point. I had looked at been offered a job at a consulting company, one of the big four, which I'm won't name. And the reason I turned it down and want to stay at Post is because, consultant, they have a reputation, I think, for working people to the bone, and things like that. And was and had just had second child and stuff like that. And didn't really want to work for a consultancy where they expect a lot of hours and things like that. So
so really, I guess depends on the company. And yes, and obviously each role can be quite different in each company. We have quite a few questions. Maybe we'll just kind of try to move on. Gary, I have a question. Having moved to more remote working, how do you replace the in-person interaction that may now miss out to ensure you're keeping in contact with your team members and not scheduling meetings? How would you like to answer this?
I think I can, because I've been fully remote for 2.5 years now, like with occasional meetups and things like that, meeting people in person in the Sydney office. And I think it is not about it's not all about in-person communication. It's about, I think, having that understanding, regardless of whether you meet them in person or not. I had a developer in my team who was in Brisbane and I was in Melbourne. We have only met once, or like maybe 5 minutes or so. So but when we worked together, we had a really good understanding, and we knew that how to respect each other's time and when to jump in and help, and all of that. That understanding is sort of building with the trust that you work with someone. As in like you work with someone and then you build the trust with them, and that helps more than in-person interactions. And also having the understanding of scheduling a meeting is not a bad thing. Like just some one-on-one time, discuss what you would like to do, what your challenges are. That's not a bad thing, especially when you're remote, because you miss the occasional coffee chat. But I think you can definitely replace that with a one-on-one that's scheduled randomly as well.
I think it's like probably a topic for like whole live stream, talking about that, getting engaged with remote team and how to kind of keep trust when remote. Gary, also have another question. Often there is some company time given to training. How do you ensure you keep your team members engaged in continuous professional development? So not only you, but how do you make sure that the developers have a continuous professional development? Who wants to talk about this?
I can answer that. So,
Yeah.
see, you can't build a team which is self-sufficient in day one. Maybe you need some time to actually build them in such a way that they can adopt and they can pick up the work by themselves, and they start working on that, rather than you telling them every time, like, this is something you have to start working on and this is something you have to stop working on. So it's just like it's about the culture, right? So when you're working with 10 different mindset of people, they are all thinking in a different way altogether, and they have a particular specialty in themselves, right? They are good with something and they are good with something different. So that's how you have to engage them. And when you're managing the work with the team members and everything, right? So even though you are doing your personal development, you need to know, like, when your team is there and you are not there, probably they are in good hands and they know like what to do and how to take up the next step altogether. So being a team lead, you have a lot more responsibility to train them or maybe help them to understand like how to solve a particular problem at some specific time. If I'm not around, somebody else should be there to actually look after them, and whom they can reach out to if in case I'm not there altogether, I'm working on my personal development or training. So this is how the building of the culture depends upon the team and how you actually engage with those people altogether.
Yeah, and everyone has their, I guess, learning style as well. Stephen, did you want to mention?
No, it's just, I think a good thing too is to understand their goals and where they want to go in terms of career, and helping them find the sort of training and things or development that would help them get there. So if they're if they're really keen on front end and say, hey, there's training for back end or something, yeah, I don't really want that. But yeah, keeping an eye on things that will help them with their progression and just making them aware of it. Yeah, it probably comes down to understanding what their aspirations are and how you can help.
Yeah, aligning it with their career development and professional plans as well. We have a great question from Shio. If you have two senior developers in your team arguing over a technical approach in implementing certain feature, but you don't know much about React.js, how would you resolve the conflict?
Sounds like very specific.
Yeah.
I think it's
Maybe there's
problem altogether.
I guess, how do you resolve the conflict between two senior developers if you don't know much details about the technology?
I think interesting. I would say this is a very interesting question because I don't see this happening very often, to be honest. Like it's not something that you'll see every day. But when it happens, I think you need to be very specific about the criteria that you're making the decision on. So compare both cons and pros and cons, and maybe set out the rules. We are going to make the decision based on this thing. And what are the drawbacks? What are the values you're getting from this approach? And so it's being rather than being emotional, rather trying to be logical, right? So I think, especially with the conflicts, the main reason I feel like the conflicts can become emotional. So you need to take out that emotional component out of that argument and then focus on the facts. I think facts cannot be changed. So facts are hard to be challenged when they're correct. So yeah, obviously the whether some fact is correct or not is a question, but at the end of the day, I think taking out that emotional conflict from a critical problem is the key.
Yeah, I guess seeing the bigger picture as well, what you're actually trying to achieve, rather than just get stuck on the framework. Anyone want to add anything on this one?
I was just like, being a tech lead, I don't see it as being sort of a dictator. So it's not necessarily just your decision. And you can try and help and guide and things like that, but then get them to, one of them to convince the other one that, if they've got two different things, and I think as was saying, sort of the pros and cons, and then making sure everyone's on board. You don't want to just come and go, we're doing this way because this sounds good to me, let's do that.
Yeah, makes sense. Kind of like be a mediator, to help them to resolve it, but not actually telling what they need to do. Yeah, makes sense. Tim has a great question. Here we go. I think to be a tech lead doesn't mean more money you get sometimes. Is it true? Just heard from others. Asking for a friend, yeah? I mean, it's a sensitive question, but I guess, overall, do you think like you do get the pay rise when you become tech lead, or if you just the senior lead developer, you'll make the same money?
I took a pay cut. Did I stuff up? Was that? Hang on.
What about you guys? What do you think? What's
That's an interesting question. I'm going to be open about it. I think I haven't actually been promoted from being senior to tech lead, so I don't know about that. But when I changed jobs, yeah, certainly there was a significant change of my salary. So yeah, I think it means more money.
Yeah, I think it's also about like your career growth, what you want to achieve more, right? It's your technical growth or growth in your career, or it's about money. Actually, it all depends upon and what sort of money you are looking at, right? How much you are taking out of it, and it all depends, right? It's a mindset, right? It's all like you think about it. Career is more important than money, or I think money sometimes get more important than career, but it just all depends upon person to person altogether.
Yeah. It's not a bad thing that you worry about the money, but it's not all about money.
Nice.
Yes.
Yeah, and then also again, like sometimes the truth is when you're changing organization, that's your chance to negotiate your salary. And sometimes it's easier to negotiate salary when you change organization, when you're within the organization and taking promotions. So I feel like I definitely need to run a live stream on this topic on salary negotiation and the money thing, because people sometimes avoid this topic, but I think it will be a great topic to run. Thank you, Tim, for your question. We definitely need to do something around that. So we're running out of time. We have only 5 minutes left of our stream, and so just before we wrap up, I want to do the announcement for next week, and you guys have a chance to, and whoever's watching us, you have a chance to win the virtual giveaway, the virtual coffee chat with our speakers, so that you can basically ask more questions one-on-one. So while I'm doing the announcement, our speakers look through the comments and choose the winners. And next week, Wednesday as usual. So as you know, I'm here every Wednesday, 5:30 p.m. 3rd of July, we have a bit of a different topic. We're going to talk about AI, of course, and how can AI help you to find a tech job. So obviously there's a lot of buzz and excitement about AI, writing resumes and answering selection criteria and things like that. But does it really can help you to land that dream job? So we're going to discuss it next week with Vinesh, Megan, and Ellie. So yeah, especially if you're looking for the job now, I think it will be a great discussion to join. Okay, so guys, have you make your mind who you're gonna network with? And so Stephen, who you gonna have a virtual coffee with?
I think Gary Smith. He was asking a lot of really great questions. So he'd probably be my pick.
Perfect. Gary, please make sure you connect with me on LinkedIn so I connect with Steven, so and follow up. Make sure you have a coffee chat. Dhanushka, who did you pick?
I would probably pick Tim Lin. I think he asked a very interesting question. I think there's probably some things I can share.
Sorry, which one?
Tim Lin.
Tim Lin, yes, the money thing, yes, okay. Tim, make sure you connect with me on LinkedIn so I can follow up as well. Mohit, who are you going to speak with?
I can talk to Shiko Wang. So
yeah, about arguing.
I think we need a serious conversation altogether out there. Yeah, definitely.
Perfect. Shika, make sure to, again, connect with us on LinkedIn so you can get your virtual coffee chat and ask more questions. And guys, we have literally 2 minutes left. In these 2 minutes, if you can summarize in like 30 seconds, in the 30 seconds, what would be your top advice for someone, for let's say senior software engineer who want to be a tech lead? What would be your top advice for someone who want to move to this role? Mohit, maybe we'll start with you.
That's a tough one to answer altogether. So there is no right or wrong thing about like how to get into a shoes of a tech lead altogether, but it's just like, see, it takes time, and over a period of time you get to grow in the role, and you need to be able to find a right opportunity at a right time. So you need to wait for it, and sometimes you have to wait longer as well, because you might day one you're not going to learn everything about tech lead. It's just like you have to take some time, get to know everything, and then when you see like this is the right time for me to gradually move up, this is the right time for you as well. Yeah, that's how
a bit of a patience, yeah, a bit of a patience is advice.
Yes.
Dhanushka, what about you? What you can add to this 30 seconds?
I would say there are skills that you can learn, whether especially software skills. I think a lot of developers are worried about that they don't have the software skill that it takes for a tech lead, just like communication skills and not being nervous around people and things like that. I think I was there before, so I know that those skills can be learned and you can be trained on those things. I would say if you're good in tech and if you feel like if you're confident, yeah, definitely those skills can be learned.
Perfect. Learn the soft skills. And Stephen.
Yeah, I think the soft skills and just getting out there and presenting at, I don't know, COPs or doing demonstrations, showcases, iteration reviews, everything, and just getting getting the business to sort of see and recognize the work that you're doing, and then keep you in mind for when opportunities do arise. That you've demonstrated those skills that Dhanushka was mentioning.
Yeah, make yourself visible and network within the organization as well. Yeah, 100%. Thank you so much, guys. It's 6:30 on the dot. Thank you so much for joining me. Thank you, everyone, for your questions. I'll make sure to follow up that you get your virtual coffees. Usual thing, obviously, subscribe to the channel, like it, share it. You know what to do. So everyone knows what to do on the YouTube and LinkedIn. Come on. So comment, share, send this video to someone who really need to hear this. And I'll see you as usual on Wednesday, next Wednesday at 5:30 and every Wednesday after. So thank you again, everyone, and see you soon.
See you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
See you.